Hi guys, my name is Borrodante, and today let's take a look at Wacom Mobile Studio Pro and compare it to my Companion 2. So as many of you guys probably know, in all of my episodes I've been using my Wacom Companion 2. I know, they all look the same, but yeah, this is the device. This is its recognizable buttons and whatnot. So this is a cool newer generation of tablets that combine features of a classic Cintiq series, where it was just a tablet that was connecting to a computer and working as a screen that you can paint on. But Companion also includes its own system. It has an i7 processor with Windows and everything, so it's like a standalone tablet as well. And Mobile Studio Pro is the next generation of this thing. You can see a more glamorous buttons that basically look the same way, but a bit nicer. The new one is not mine. A good friend of mine got it as a present recently, and I'm using a chance of making a video about it, because it's really interesting if you ask me. So there's a lot of things to mention. I'll start with a general impression from the new version. The processor is a bit faster, the image on the screen is a bit nicer, and the main improvement is probably the fact that this thing is a lot lighter now, and noticeably slimmer as well, I believe. Yeah, and like, it's smaller in all dimensions, but the weight is really a big deal, because this thing is heavy as hell. It's not exactly mobile. This one is much closer to being an iPad on steroids, I guess. So that's the basic difference for me. Like, mostly it's just a little bit better, but there's quite a few things that I don't really like all that much in the new version. So let's get to it, step by step. Number one, what's in the box? I'll start with describing what I have in my Companion 2 and then move on to the newer one. So with my Companion 2, I had first of all a pen, my favorite Pro pen, nice looking thing, with this kind of case for it, which is a very fancy thing, on magnets, with 9 holes for extra nibs, and special rings to choose a different color for your personal pen, so different artists could easily tell which one's their pen. So, and everything is just holding in like this, nicely taking it with you whenever you go. A stand. This is the thing that I'm always using when I'm painting in front of a table. On all the episodes I'm using it. Everyone hates it, but it's working. It has 3 different heights to support the tablet at the angle. Wow, there's a lot of dust on this. But yeah, it's a thing that works pretty well. It connects into this hole at the bottom or at the top if you're a lefty. And what's really good about it is that it's really slim, so it can just be connected to the back of the tablet and it fits into the bag and everything. You can always take it with you. So it's like super mobile. That's nice. And finally, the most gross thing is this gigantic 2-part laptop-ish kind of cable with a brick in the middle. Well, that sucks, but that's what I have to deal with. Now, this is the main parts. Also, there is like a piece of cloth to wipe it and whatnot, but that's whatever. So that's the Companion 2. Now, for the Mobile Studio, we have a new generation of the pen, Pen Pro 2. Spoiler alert, the only improvement is a bigger angle for the tilt. Everything else, I don't really know what's new. Another new thing is a special holder for the pen that connects to the side of the tablet, which is a thing that I don't have in my generation, and I don't even have any stand for the pen, and I have to use my old school holder from Intuos 3. Kinda works. So anyway, this thing holds your pen either like this, you can't see anything, do you? Or I assume like this, and this little part at the top goes inside of your tablet. Just like this. It's right at the angle like this, and you can, I guess, adjust the angle a little bit here, but basically 90 degrees is how you remove it. So that's the thing. Really cool, I really like it. Always wanted the ability to stick the pen to the tablet. Now for the case. This is what the case looks like in the Mobile Studio. Phallic indeed. So I'm not very happy with it. Like, I think my older case is way nicer to work with and everything. Plus it contains more things. So in here, this holder connects to the top the same way. So this is how you kind of like store it when you're not using it. If you remove the cap at the top, there's placement for, I believe, 6 nibs, which is a smaller amount. Let's point that out right away. And then if you drag it out, that's where you store the pen. Well, I mean, it's alright, but the thing with the top stuff, I mean, look at this. Right now it's completely closed, and this is how you open it. It's like waiting for you to lose it and go to the store and buy a new one. That's, I believe, the purpose of this thing. So yeah, I think this case is kind of a downgrade. Plus, as you can see, there's no space for the color rings, these ones. They come with the tablet, but they're like in a separate little bag or something. Like plastic bag, or I don't remember. But the point is, there's no place for them in the mobile setup. And guess what? Not a lot of improvement in the charger, except for the fact that it looks much nicer. Aesthetically, it's much better. Am I holding it upside down? No, I'm not. It's all cool. So this is what it looks like, but basically it's not easier to use at all, which is something that I was having some hopes about, considering that it's using USB Type-C. For some reason I thought, well, I guess it's gonna be just one little cord like my phone has. Nah. Also, I tried to charge it with my phone's charger. It doesn't work. Now for the bad part. That's all there is in the box with the Mobile Studio. There is no stand coming in the box, so you can't really, like, you can use it only on your lap or flat on the table like this, or right away buy it separately, which is what my friend did, and she's using this kind of stand. It's kind of cool, actually. It has a very tight and nice leg in here. It's removable, and it's kind of getting flat enough to transport, but I don't know. This is far from the slimness of this thing. But yeah, it's nice to work on it, and you don't have to dismantle it in any hard way. You just put it into this fold in here, and that's for your tablet. It's resting pretty easily. So it's pretty convenient, but far from being mobile, I guess. Not far, but less mobile. The brand is Artisol. So if you're buying this thing, you should better buy the stand right away. And now for the last thing, which is also something that my companion has, which is the bag for the thing. A nice looking, slick, protecting kind of bag. It's without handles, it's just so you would just contain everything inside and protect it. There's a place for the case, there's a place for the keyboard or whatever you want. On top, you can put in the pen, and the tablet goes inside in here. Kind of stylish thing. It was really nice to have it in the setup, but I believe there's no bag with Mobile Studio. So now for some physical features of the thing. They're basically the same thing, not a lot of new problems or anything. As I said, this one is lighter and slimmer, so that's really good. Doesn't have the speakers in front, but I'm not sure if that's a big problem anyway. The distance from the surface to the actual colors that you're painting is a lot smaller, which is much nicer. It's a lot closer to the feeling of painting on just paper, so that's cool. Ports and buttons. Right away, the buttons in here are the same, but the rocker ring in the middle is actually very different from what I have in Companion 2. Because in here, it's a sensor thing that you can actually scroll with like this, with rotation movements. And I gotta say, I hate it. I think it's very uncomfortable and it's hard to use it, because in here I used it in a very nice way. Up and down is increasing, decreasing the size of the brush. Left and right is undo and redo. Wake up. And that's it. It's very comfortable. You just place your hand here and you work with it. You don't have to look at it. It's very obvious and easy to use. On this side, this thing is just a very vague way of input. You don't know exactly how many steps you're going through as you're touching it so softly. And 4 buttons on 4 sides are now just choosing the mode for this sensor scrolling thing. So, I don't know, it's not very comfortable if you ask me. Like, it's potentially having more features. Basically, we have 4 different things in 2 dimensions, increasing and decreasing, when I just had 2 in here, but it's very uncomfortable. Like, you can't use it for undo and redo, because by scrolling softly, you have no idea how much steps you will undo or redo. That's very unpleasant to work with. So that's one thing about input that I don't like. Everything else is basically the same. Now for the ports and the maintenance buttons, everything's basically the same on this side, except for SD port migrated to this side on Mobile Studio, and Companion has it on the other side, as well as the audio jack. Then we have the power button and volume buttons and the rotation lock. I have the same thing here, but in different order. Now the other side is very different. Thing is that they removed a lot of things in the new version. First of all, as you can see, there's only 3 small USB Type-C ports instead of 3 blue USB 3 ports that I have here, which is of course a lot more comfortable this way. In 2017 still. Plus I have a separate port for the power supply, and a new version there's no power supply port, because power supply is using Type-C, which means that you have 1 less USB port on this thing, because one of them is always gonna be used by the power supply, and you're gonna need power supply at all times with these things. So yeah, this is very minimalistic here. This little hole is just for the pen holder. Oh, and by the way, Companion 2 also has big SD slot, as well as the Mobile Studio, but also it has micro SD, which is absent in the new version. Also some universal port for external display, but now I guess everything will be going through these Type-C ports, and I don't know. I used to use all 3 of my USB ports when I was using this thing in standalone mode. I don't know how this thing is gonna work. Okay, so once more quickly about the pens. The bottom one is the new one. They're literally the same size, the same shape, only the eraser button is a bit smaller in the new one. The same buttons, the same size and the weight, but the new version has a bit of a bigger tilt. Pen Pro 1 had 40 degrees tilt. Pen Pro 2, which I suspect was some kind of an answer of Wacom to iPencil from Apple that had 70 degrees tilting. This thing now has 60 degrees. Thank you, Apple. I don't think there's any other difference in here, unless I missed something. Oh, and also, Mobile Studio supports Pen Pro 1 and Pen Pro 2, and my Companion doesn't work with Pen Pro 2, so there's that. Now for the screen. Meaningless to show it like this, but anyway, you can see how the colors are all saturated and the contrast is a little bit better than what I have here with this black and white background that totally shows everything you want to know. Anyway, the contrast is a bit better in the new one. In fact, I think the colors are so saturated that it feels like it may be distorting your perception of what you're painting. Like, I even have this kind of problem sometimes with my Companion 2. After I finish the painting and I look at it on my generic display, it just looks a lot more dull, and I'm like, oh, I thought I was doing saturated enough, maybe I wasn't. Who knows now? Anyway, that kind of stuff is adjustable. Having a bigger range of color is much better than having less. The resolutions are the same, 2560 by 1440, which is Ultra HD resolution. Now for the battery life. First of all, both devices, the whole series, I guess, of these devices, is far from being actually like mobile. Like, it's not an iPad. You can't take it to the park and just paint around for like 4 hours. It's not gonna happen. On my Companion, I can paint on battery for about an hour and a half tops. If I'm barely doing anything with the system at all, it will probably be 2.5 hours. The new one has a noticeably more durable battery. I would say like at least 30% in the same kind of condition, but it's far from precise numbers or anything. Like, I'm just saying some conclusions that I could make in the last 24 hours. One important thing though, while having this tough situation with just just 3 Type-Cs and using one of them for the charger, it's actually a pretty good thing comparing to what I have in Companion 2, meaning my charger has this kind of input. I think it's like a basic kind of laptop thing. Thing is, this is a very common problem with Companion 2, that it kind of gets broken after a while, and right now I can charge my device only up to like 90% tops, and then it just stops charging. So I highly doubt that that will ever happen with well-tested universal Type-C port. So that's good. Okay, now performance-wise. By the way, they're both devices of the same class. There are different classes in each generation. Both of these are 256 gigabytes SSD. That's the main number for defining the class. So this is next to the best one. The best one is 512, I believe, still. So anyway, my version of Companion 2 has i7 processor of the 4th generation. The new one has the i7 generation 6. So on that side, all the numbers are better, but I couldn't really test the performance all that much, because what really matters for painting these days is the GPU, and sadly in the new version of the same size of the tablet, it still has a crappy Intel graphics card. Probably a newer generation, but Intel GPU is Intel GPU. But I can say it doesn't stand in your way when you're painting. It's just that, like, maybe not super smooth scaling when you're zoom in and out or something like that. But generally you can work pretty smoothly. And I don't think I've seen any difference in the performance where GPU matters. So yeah, this is the 13-inch kind of tablet, which was the only case in the Companion 2 generation. But in Mobile Studio there's also a 16-inch, I believe, much bigger device, which has a very interesting and awesome hardware in there, including NVIDIA graphics card, so that's really interesting. Okay, so I'm not gonna paint in them, because it's literally the same thing. Even the tilting, like, you won't see the change in the performance on the screen, is just gonna be for me, like I can tilt it for a bigger angle. Aside from that, there are 2 cameras on both devices. Form factor wise, I don't really like the way they positioned the camera on the new version, because on Mobile Studio the camera is here, in the middle of the side of the tablet, and in my case it's in here, in the very middle at the top, which is much nicer when you are talking on Skype or something. The quality of the pictures is much nicer on the second one, less noise, and the front camera doesn't switch to a lower frame rate mode when it has a lack of light. So it generally just looks much nicer, so you can use the front camera to quickly take a picture of something and use it as a texture in your artwork, which we all know never gonna happen. Okay, so that's it for the 2 devices, 2 generations of mobile Cintiq tablets from Wacom. There's quite a few improvements, but 100% not a reason to buy the new one if you have Companion 2 already. Oh, another thing, which is really important, doesn't come in the box with the Mobile Studio Pro, is the cable to connect the tablet to your desktop, which is something I have and I'm using it all the time right now. I only paint on Companion 2 as a Cintiq monitor connected to my desktop computer that has a much higher performance than any mobile device ever. So that's the thing I have. I believe it has, I've been told, it has a cable that you can buy separately. It will probably use yet another Type-C port. Hopefully it will charge as well through that port, but I don't know anything about that. The point is that it doesn't come in the box. So that's a bummer. Again, what's up with that? That was like the main selling point of the Companion tablet, that you can use it as a tablet whenever you go and also connect it to your desktop and use it as it is. It's quite an awesome mode to work in, and it's really sad that Mobile Studio Pro doesn't have that by default. So in case you're buying Mobile Studio Pro, make sure that you buy USB 3 to Type-C adapters, a bag, a stand, a cable to connect it to the desktop, and some tissues to wipe the tears. Because it's a lot of money, I suppose. In general, I gotta say, I really love both devices, and my main issue with my Companion 2 was always its weight and the battery life, which is something that improved quite a lot in the new version, so that's cool. Oh, and the sensor rocker ring is not exactly convenient, but you don't really use it a lot if you have the Bluetooth keyboard, so whatever. So yeah, there's that. In general, I guess you can say that Mobile Studio Pro is a lot more mobile and a lot less of a desktop kind of thing. But the painting experience is awesome on the both of them. Ultra HD resolution, like very dense pixels, is really cool when you paint very closely. You can see no pixels. You work with it like with the paper. It's really nice. I like it a lot. So this is a cool device, but it's really expensive, I believe. I don't remember the numbers, but they're like crazy. So anyway, I have to stop this review already. Ask questions and get answers in the comments. And I thank you for watching if you did. I guess you did if you're here. Leave a like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Don't forget that better tablet won't improve your skill. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. They smell the same.